What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Jawns. It's your usual hosts, Mitch Cook and Reilly.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
Remember, if you'd like to support our podcast, Lanternlight Studios, and the other podcasts underneath Lanternlight Studios, go to patreon.com/LanternlightStudios. Thanks to our current patrons, and a special thanks to our Russell James John support group. Without all of you guys, we couldn't do what we do. If you haven't checked out our website before, go to GameJohnsPodcast.com, and you can go back and see our new banner, which is dope. Thanks, Kwong. You can check out old episodes, and you can stay up to date on new episodes. And if you could, please, I'm asking you, and maybe begging you, rate us on Podchaser. Give us 5 stars, and let us know we're doing a good job. It'd mean a lot to me, Jack, and maybe even Reilly. Jack, how else can they support Game Jawns?
If they'd like to support Game Jawns specifically and only because we were the first and we were also the best, you can donate to us at glow.fm/GameJawns. Your support is greatly appreciated. And if you would like to keep up with our up-to-date content, follow us on Twitter at GameJawns. Thank you.
Very exciting. Reilly, what are these other podcasts I mentioned earlier?
Well, for those of you who don't know, Lanternlight Studios has 2 new podcasts. If you're really interested in taking a deep dive into different movies and TV shows, check out ScreenJohnspodcast.com. If you're really interested in what-if scenarios for great sporting events throughout history, check out Greatest Games Never Played, GGNPpodcast.com.
Awesome. I'm glad that we have some competition. I mean, we are the first and best, as Jack said, so no, not too much competition, of course. Check those guys out. They do some great content. So today we are joined by a special guest, Matt Bowl.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today, Matt.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
For those of you who may not be aware or just need a reminder, we are doing this all remotely. And today we have our guest, Matt, is joining us from across the pond. And so we appreciate all of your guys' patience with any maybe sound errors you might hear or anything like that. You know, we're working out the kinks, but hopefully you appreciate the good content we put out. And I am glad that Matt took the time to join us today. So Matt, for those of us who aren't aware of who you are and would like to know more about you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay. I'm a teenage game developer. I am currently working on a game called Millions of Minions, and I am the game director of the team Heads Up Games. I also run like a YouTube channel and sort of document my journey as I go through my game dev stuff, I suppose. And yeah.
Very cool. So when did you start doing game development?
Game development started around 3 or 4 years ago. So I would have been about 13, 14, between that sort of time.
So it's fair to say you started doing it a lot earlier than a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because I understand there's a large indie development scene in your area? Is that because of that, or are you just really interested in gaming and you wanted to take a crack at it?
Right. Yeah, so I went to a convention just before I started getting into game development, and there was one developer there that I guess sort of clicked something in my mind, I suppose. And then I just wanted to, I guess, have a shot at it. And I got home from the convention and just sort of researched how to make a game. And yeah, just really went from there, to be fair.
So how has this road been? Has it been kind of challenging being such a young developer, or has it been relatively easy?
Oh yeah, it's had its ups and downs, and there have been, especially early on, there was a lot of people that obviously doubted me because I was so young, so they doubted my experience in the industry and stuff. But now I'm starting to get a bit more, acknowledged that I am putting the same amount of work in that industry professionals do. But yeah, it's not been the easiest road, especially at the start, because friends, parents. My parents are really supportive now, but previously they were a bit like but now it's really good now.
Well, I'm glad things cleared up for you. I understand the whole parents are supportive now, but maybe in the beginning they were a little wary of it.
Yeah.
So early on in your intro, you mentioned a game called Millions of Minions.
Mhm.
What is that game about? Like, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So Millions of Minions is a top-down dungeon crawler roguelite in which you use minions, which are like little creatures, and you use them to attack enemies and progress through multiple dungeons until you basically get to the surface. I guess the closest sort of resemblance is probably The Binding of Isaac, although we didn't actually get any inspiration from Binding of Isaac until like the last month of development.
The inspirations can take from any form.
Mm.
So while making this game, what were some of the challenges you faced? I know you said it's part of Head Tilt Games. I see it on your Steam page. Is
Yeah.
that help or?
Yeah. So Head Tilt Games. So in the team that's working on Millions of Minions, there are three of us, along with some sound designers and musicians. But predominantly there are three of us, and it's been quite a weird sort of journey because we've never really worked in a team like professionally, I suppose. But it's definitely helped a lot having that extra support from, I guess, colleagues in a way. It's kind of weird to call it that now, but yeah. So it was in December that we formed the team together, and like officially, we started basically a year ago. We're 2 days off of our 1 year anniversary.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Well,
Wow. So you're a game director, I think you said, for this
Mhm.
company, Head Tilt Games. Can you describe maybe what your responsibilities are as like a game director for our audience that doesn't quite know?
Yeah. So, if I'm honest, game director, it's sort of something you can sort of use quite, I suppose, loosely, because my roles are quite widespread throughout the team. I'm responsible for a lot of the marketing, PR, like overall, basically, and the programming, the design. So it's sort of, I guess it sort of varies from team to team what a game director really is. But basically, I oversee a lot of the production of the game to make sure, we're not falling behind deadlines, and I'm behind a lot of the project management stuff, especially now.
So, yeah, so is publicity like incredibly hard just because you're an indie dev studio, or would you say that you benefit from being in an indie dev studio, or can you talk a little bit about how that's different from some of the larger
Yeah.
studios and their working environment?
hmm Yeah. We made I guess, kind of, I wouldn't say it was a choice really, but we didn't really realize how important marketing was. And then, now it's become a bit of a bigger thing. But it's, I guess, obviously for AAA companies, it's, they've already got a name for themselves and stuff. So, they got like, let's say Call of Duty, for example. Everyone knows Call of Duty. So, whenever they release a new game, it's going to get some sort of traction. So I suppose with an indie studio, you actually, like, you have to make something a lot more unique than anything, because obviously you're trying to stand out from the crowd, and there is a very, very big crowd, especially, now it's predominantly like, I think indies are really growing like so much more than we ever really expected. Because 2008 I think was the sudden surge of indies, and then we're basically having another one essentially. So it's a lot harder to, I guess, get like people interested in your game without being obnoxious.
So you take a very grassroots approach to getting people into your game.
Yeah.
I can imagine not having the funding like a AAA studio is quite
Oh yeah,
detrimental.
yeah, yeah. I guess with that, we're all of us are teenagers for the record, so it's very difficult to fund your project when a lot of it's out of our own pocket at the moment. So it's quite tough when we're not earning a proper wage. So I suppose it's a lot harder to sort of make high quality games. I mean, it's a bit difficult with that one because like I guess the biggest thing is sort of getting all of the team like motivated to work on the project. That's been my biggest like probably my biggest hurdle I've had to like try to cross, and still it's like quite a difficult one because nobody's actually getting any money. So it's kind of like we're just losing money more than we're gaining money at the moment. But I'm sure that will sort of change as we release like Millions of Minions and future projects.
Because you have an early access coming out pretty soon, right?
Yeah, the 30th of June is our release date for early access.
Ooh.
Wow. And how many of you are, you said it was a bunch of people working with you. How many people are part of your team, if you don't mind me asking?
I believe there is 6. Yeah, that's 6 of us. Some of them sort of just do things here and there. But yeah, there's around 6 or 7.
Wow.
So you said that you're both, or not both, your team is consisted of teenagers, and with that, you obviously have faced some challenges being younger in this industry. And alongside that, how has being still in school, how has it affected your game development path?
Well, at the start, it was a lot harder because I was so essentially how the UK education works. Before you're 16, you have to do loads and loads and loads of lessons. But I chose to go to college, which isn't like college in the US. But we pick a course and we just basically do that course. And I chose games design. So for me, it's not, I was always doing game development now. So it hasn't really got in the way too much. But I think one of the people that's in the core development team, our director, he's the I think he's being homeschooled, so I think it's a little bit easier to sort of manage your time with that as well. I mean, I wouldn't know, but yeah.
I can imagine time management between taking classes, regardless of whether it's, I guess, in the US here, high school or college, and trying to develop a full game with a studio of people of the same age would be relatively difficult.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the other big thing is like, we act like we're quite experienced. I mean, I think now we're a lot more experienced than we were, obviously. But back when we started, like, I look back at it and I'm like, what were we doing? But yeah, so I think the weird thing is because when you're young, you don't really know where your paths are going to go. Really, like you sort of have an idea of where it will go. But I guess there's some people out there that sometimes they change those paths and stuff. We have someone in the team that he's like struggling with if he wants to do game dev and stuff. So having to manage that and just get him to just keep putting the work in until we release the game has been a real stressful moment. And we lost a member of the team around a month ago. Much for the same reason. He was choosing a different path and stuff. So that's been a really hard sort of thing to cope with, especially mentally, because it sort of makes you think, oh god, am I actually doing the work enough? But at the end of the day, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I know for certain that there's one guy in there that's gonna stick with me throughout, like, well, hopefully for the future as well. So I guess sort of having that keeps me motivated to make sure that, I don't just give up. And I haven't even had like any thoughts of giving up, which is thank God.
Right, that's good. So, with this quarantine in place and the various curfews in place because of the quarantine, are you guys forced to work remotely, or are you still meeting every
I
now and
got a
again?
well, that's a funny story right there. We are already working remotely. I
Oh,
don't think I even mentioned this, but yeah, we're global. So we've got someone in China, someone in Bulgaria, someone in America, someone here. So we're
well,
very diverse.
that's awesome. It's
Yeah.
we at Lantern Light can relate to the idea of being a remote-based development studio, but that's got to be crazy trying to balance everyone's different
Could imagine
time
the time
zones.
zones. Yeah, having those meetings is the most tough thing to. Well, now I'm sort of used to it, but previously, like when I started, I have to have the meeting at 12 in the morning.
Oof.
I'm like, yeah, whatever you say. But now, now. But yeah, at the start I was like, oh man, I'm tired. But yeah, now it's sort of become a routine. We have meetings every Sunday, so.
Oh, very
Oh,
cool.
what a coincidence.
Right. Same here.
As do we.
It's got to be interesting having these different people on your team with varying backgrounds and having their own influences on your game.
Hmm.
Has anyone's particular influence really popped out, or are you guys relatively on the same page of how you want the game to look and feel?
I think so. There was one person. The person I said was probably going to stick with the team. Back at we started the team together, so we've sort of started it, and we're going to continue it. And me and him have sort of had moments where we're just like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And then he's like, yeah, it is. So we have these sort of like, we just sort of give up, and we're like, we'll think about it another time. And then, that other time creeps up. But, it's, I think a lot of our views now are a lot better because obviously we're getting close to release, so there's not really much you can change anyway. But when we were developing the storyline for the game, I'd say that was the biggest, the biggest sort of battle, I suppose. Me and the guy, we were both of us wanted to work on a story. Already, that's like, and then we wrote the story together. No, he wrote a draft for the story. Then I came in and was like, oh, I don't like that bit, don't like that bit, don't like that bit. But yeah, the story was probably the weirdest thing to agree on. Because also we had to remember that, we've got to get this project done within a year. Is like a year is our deadline really, because we've got, as I said earlier, we're not earning anything at the moment. So what we want to do is get this game out and kind of just get some sort of income, just so we can sort of set ourselves up for the next year. And I guess hopefully eventually that will become a bit more sustainable. But yeah, so I guess, when we got to think of a storyline that's not too complex and out of this world, it's a bit of a tough scenario because, the scope of the game was, also something that we kept sort of changing at the start. We were like, oh yeah, we'll do this, and we'll do this. But yeah, now I think all of us are pretty proud of like sort of how the game's going, and I think it's gonna go a lot better than we're actually anticipating. I don't know. It could be me just being optimistic, but I've got to be optimistic
No, it's
because
good.
it rubs off on the team as well. So
Of course, I totally get it. I I hope it goes well for you guys. I'll be looking forward to getting my hands on it once it comes into early access.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
outside of specific game development with Head Tilt Games and your own personal projects, I understand that you have a YouTube channel as well.
Mhm.
What do you do with that? Like, what do you promote on that platform?
So on my YouTube channel, I'm basically posting my game dev journey. I'm documenting it like over time as I progress. I've recently tried to do a sort of blank slate, I suppose. Still the same channel, but just sort of um, changing it up. But yeah, the channel is the same as my name. But yeah, it's a game dev oriented channel. But yeah, I also do a podcast on there where I speak to. I'm working my way up the ladder. I'm, started off with one of my game development inspirations on the YouTube platform. That was the first one I ever did, which is, oh, it was crazy because I was here like I've never done a podcast before, and I just contacted this guy and asked him, and it's really great. And that's something that I'm hoping to resume after early access for Millions of Minions, because the launch month of the game is the most hectic thing I've ever sort of anticipated.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt that that feels like you're putting one fire out after the other.
Mhm.
So, let's move away from your business opportunities, your YouTube channel, and let's try to dive into you as a game player and game maker. So, as you became a game developer,
Mhm.
what games did you play while you were younger that inspired you to pursue the career of game development?
Hmm. I used to. Hmm. A tough one.
It is a
Uh,
tough one. I understand.
God. I'd probably say a lot of my time was spent. Oh my. I was probably playing Minecraft. I mean, it was around that sort of time anyway as well. So yeah, it was really big back then too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess Minecraft was probably, I guess the creativity side of it probably inspired me in some aspects. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I guess after I, started game development, you sort of veer away from games a lot, which is strange. Oh, that was the other one I used to play. I used to play Civilization, and I still play Civilization.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh yeah. But yeah, like strategy games have always been a big thing of mine. And local multiplayer games as well, like like party games, Gang Beasts, uh, a lot of party games. Like split screen sort of things as well.
Yeah.
I guess I always liked the social aspect of games. I thought that was like pretty cool. And like obviously local multiplayer started sort of dying out for a while. Previously, like ages and ages ago, like you'd have split screen in every game, or you'd have shared screen in every game. Then that died out. So I guess because I grew up with my dad who played a lot of Street Fighter, Double Dragon. So I guess the sort of arcade experiences that I had way, way back when sort of made me want to, I guess, do like I guess play those sorts of games for the rest of my life, I suppose. But online multiplayer is something that I've always sort of, I guess I like it, but I'm like sort of on the fence about online multiplayer. I don't know why. I don't think there's any. I don't have anything against it as such. I just I find local multiplayer when you're like sitting in the same room, or now there's like services like the Steam Remote Play and stuff like that where you can play games together like that. But yeah, I think those games sort of I guess I found so much enjoyment in those games. So I suppose because I enjoyed games so much, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
game development could be cool. Because before I was doing game development, I was actually doing a lot of writing. And I was already programming before I even got into game development. I don't even remember how I got into programming, to be honest, and I don't know what I made. But it was probably terrible. I was 10 when I started, but I've always had a passion for programming, so I guess that sort of also got me into like doing a lot of it. But yeah, I sort of wanted to visualize my writing into something new, into something different, and then I started playing a lot more games, and then I was like, oh, that seems interesting.
So you just kind of picked up programming. I'm kind of impressed. I actually tried to learn programming. I'll admit it wasn't good. Anyone who's ever seen it, it wasn't good. I don't know how Reilly started, but I know she does programming as well.
Well, yeah, I actually kind of started programming in high school. Kind of started a girls who code club. I did a
Oh.
lot of that in high school. I also did animation. So going into college, I thought what I wanted to do was two separate things. I want to animate, but I also really love coding. So I started out actually double majoring in media and computer science before I was like, oh wait, I can combine this. Games. That works. And it just kind of went from there.
Right on.
Yeah.
So sorry I have a
I
quick
got-
question for you. When you were talking about writing for games, do you feel like you really want to push a narrative or tell a distinct story when you make your games, or do you kind of feel like mindless group party fun is a better avenue?
I'd say in terms of longevity sake, if I wanted my games to be played in the future and stuff, I suppose like the sort of mindless group games would be more, I guess, appealing.
Mindless might
But
be too harsh of a word. Sorry.
yeah, well, no, I don't know what you'd call it, to be honest. I think that's about right. You just bash buttons and hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I guess in the long run, I do want to work on some sort of story-based thing. Actually, I'm saying that, and I literally just remembered that our next project is fairly story-based. That's sort of just yeah. I don't know. I've always, I guess, the other games that also really spoke to me were like the Telltale games where your choices sort of impacted the whole like ending of the game. I thought that was really interesting. So I guess that also probably inspired me a little bit into game development. Going back to your old question, Mitch. But yeah, I think it's something that I do as a team because obviously, for me, I like to have my own personal projects as well as my group projects. I sort of have one solo thing that I work on and then one big thing that I work on. My solo thing is usually just like a learning experience, I suppose. So I guess with my group projects, that's something that I would be more interested in doing a narrative driven thing, whereas something like, that's all solo would want it to be played like infinitely. A really replayable game. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was a good question, Jack, and a good answer, Matt. You guys talk about writing. I'm just like, I write things once or twice, a joke or two. I don't know. I'm out here trying to be funny, although I am
You got
assured very quickly.
You got a stand-up career coming that you haven't
Oh,
told
I
us
do.
about?
Yeah, I didn't want to tell you guys. I didn't want to spoil the afternoon because, as we know, I'm the funniest man here. No, I'm not.
Sure.
I'll show
I'm
up
not.
just
Sure,
to
Mitch.
throw fresh fruit and rotten tomatoes and stuff.
Yeah, Mitch, the door's just over there.
I mean, I'll videotape it. Definitely. Could have
Oh,
a
that'll be
relapse
good.
later.
We can do
Oh.
a crossover. We can upload it to Matt's channel, and it'll be
I see this as not going the way I planned. Okay.
It never does. Haven't you
It
learned?
never does. I don't know what I was expecting in this scenario. So When writing games, do you find it you might have answered this in a way, but do you find it easier to write it with a group of other people or purely by yourself? I mean, obviously, writing by yourself can tend to be easier, but sometimes you hit writer's block. Does it help having other people around you as you write?
Yeah, so actually, I guess I could sort of put that also into a little bit of how I do a lot of my game development because
Yeah.
so I actually do a lot of my work whilst I'm talking to my friends. Just I don't know. I guess always talking to my friends keeps me sane. Otherwise, I sort of get so embedded into whatever I'm doing, and then I just go crazy. But unless there's something that I need to like really focus on, then I'm like, okay, blank everything out. But yeah, so I'd say I like to write on my own, but not in the sense that there's nobody around me, if that makes sense. Like I like having people around me, but I like writing my own stuff.
Okay. Okay. I was about to ask Jack if he had a dream of becoming a writer after that question, but I feel like I'm afraid to hear his answer.
I have see it's a contentious answer because I feel like I have a lot of dreams and I also feel like they're not all dreams. Like I don't know which one I should really hone in on. So
And
I
Jack's
kind of
having
want
an
to.
A lot of dreams, not all feasible.
Yeah, basically. I might be dipping my toes. We'll see. I've
Okay.
As
had
much as I love story, I will say I don't think I'm ever going to be a good writer. So let's not go in that
Okay.
direction.
Let me tell you what makes me think that I could at least do like a semi decent job is because like if you've ever gone on this is gonna be kind of embarrassing, I guess, but if you've ever gone on like the WordPress sites or like the what's the name of this one site? Basically just like any fan fiction-y site that talks about any topic like Star Wars or anime or whatever the case. Like I'm pretty sure every writer there is in like middle school. And so like you can pretty distinctly make like an all right work of fiction and post it like a one shot there and be like, hey, my grammar is actually like higher than fifth graders or whatnot. So that's like the one thing that has my ego thinking like, oh yeah, I could do that. But other than
But
that,
see,
no.
the thing with that, Jack, is they already have characters that are developed for you to
Yeah,
play
that is
with.
also
You didn't
true.
just
Yes.
write the characters into
Yes.
existence, which
You
is one
know,
of the hardest things.
I have a question for you, Matt. Is naming characters a hard task for you? Because I like anytime I need to make a username, I hate it. Like it's my scare
Oh,
like
I love it. I
the
will
most
deep dive and
fear.
figure out characters by
I
like
agree with Reilly right there. It's really fun. But I guess it's kind of interesting with that. The main character of Millions of Minions doesn't have a name, and we've kept it that way because he's supposed to be quite mysterious and stuff. We didn't really think that a name would really work for him anyway, because it's like, what do you name a guy that doesn't speak? So it's like, I don't know. But yeah, enemies and stuff. We've named all of our enemies. We have the flesh frog, the murderous mongrel, the dentist nightmare. We've got a lot of those have sort of come from me. So yeah, I guess it's not really something that I struggle with, I'd like to say, but at the same time, like I guess if I thought about it too hard, then I wouldn't be able to think of anything. But if I think of it like back in the back of my mind, then like I'm not focused on it, and then because if you focus on like something like that, if you focus on your imagination, then you sort of it doesn't flow as nicely. That's what I've found. Like you sort of lock it in place, so you can't think outside the box as such.
That's interesting. I've never like considered that, but I think you have a good point there. For me, it's definitely like I think about it way too hard. Like I'll look at it
Yeah.
and I'll be like, the first thing that pops into my head, I'll write it in and I'll be like, oh, that's cool. And then like I come back to it later and I'm like, wait, is that original? There's no way that's original. Like somebody else has that for sure. And then I get
I
like
love
super paranoid because I don't want to like have any stain or like any semblance of something that's been like made already, and have someone be like, "Dude, that's not like original. You suck." I'd be like, "Fuck."
I love names with like double meanings and looking into the background of like what a name means or something. So like even just reading books, it's like, oh, that's a
nerd.
strange name. And so shut up. So like Darth Vader, has like a meaning. But like,
Are you afraid to spoil that right there? It's like a super
I
old
didn't
movie.
actually like spoil it, but yeah, I mean, people should already know the answer to that. I'm sorry. If you're this far into the podcast, no. But
go
I
watch Star
love
Wars.
things like that. Like little things that you figure out later, or you can research and figure out like Latin terms and stuff like that. I love it.
Oh, that is probably one of the coolest things when you're playing a game and it's like either the game's named after some Latin word or it has like an item that has a Latin word and you're like, oh, whoa, that sounds like whatever it sounds like, because it sounds a lot like English. And so you go to Google Translate and you're like, whoa. Yeah, that's probably one of the coolest experiences when you sort of find like the background meaning. Yeah.
I love the idea that Reilly sits at home, she watches a movie or plays a game, and she sees a name, stops everything she's doing, and then looks it up. Because why play the game that's fun when you could look up a character name?
No, I play the game, but there has to be a point in time where I'm not playing the game, and I'm curious.
I can honestly say I've never done that. I've never stopped a game and be like,
kills the cat though, Reilly, be careful.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. I'm well aware. Yeah. But with novels and everything else, I'm definitely that person. Like, that's a strange name. I wonder if the author did that on purpose. And then I'll try to figure it out because then I feel smart.
Yeah. I mean, coming up with like the Millions of Minions name was really kind of, going back to like how Jack asked, like how you name like characters. Also like naming like the titles of something. So the main idea was that you would spawn millions of these creatures. Now, back then we were stupid. So, the original version of the game was actually made was made in a game jam. It was made in 72 hours. And the theme was Start With Nothing. It was for a Luden Dare. And literally we were like, okay, you can spawn these creatures and you can fire these creatures. And we never added a limit to how many creatures you could have. So like you literally could like make your whole computer go to like 1 frame per second. And it was just ridiculous. And then from that bug, we were like, oh, actually, you know what? We should, Millions of Minions sounds quite interesting. So because we didn't really think about it, but then we sort of thought about it. Well, that made no sense, but
I get it. I mean, that's how I do everything, is I don't think about it, and then I think about it.
Yeah, Mitch makes no sense ever. So like, you
think about it after the fact.
Listen, when you live
got
life
like 30
this fast,
in the belt.
No,
I don't think you live. Well, you might be living fast, I guess. You don't know
me. I'm living life fast. I'm land speed record breaker over here. When I go to name things, I try to find out like based on characteristics of the character, especially for games. So when I played D&D, I guess it's a game. It counts as a game. It's a game. I don't know why I said I guess it's a game. When I played D&D, I based my character's name off of their species, their profession, and the area around them. And I made up a whole family history from it. And that was fun. Although if you tell me to do it on the spot, I won't do it. I don't know how to. Not good enough. Unlike Jack, I don't have the ability to write fanfic. I'm not that creative.
I didn't say I did. I just said that I've read it before.
I mean, no, that's a cover up, Jack. We can see.
Yeah.
We all know. You've revealed yourself.
Yeah, it'll be easy to find because it'll have names that are super generic. They'll be like, oh yeah, this is definitely his work because he couldn't think of anything.
Why is this character's name Mitch? This is weird.
Maybe Mitch means something completely different in Latin.
I think Reilly was influenced heavily by like high school English teachers who were like, and the meaning behind the blue curtain is that the author wanted to describe
Not really
the
high
ocean.
school English, but like my dad's a high school librarian, if that gives you a better idea.
It might be a leading clue.
I was more of a math kid in high school, but you know.
I mean, with the whole sort of reading between the lines sort of thing, that's something you really start hating when you're a game developer because as you're playing games, the only thing you see is like, oh, I wonder how you could make this thing work in whatever you're using. Like, yeah, it could be the simplest thing, like I don't know, a water splash, and you're like, whoa, you know, like most normal players are just sort of just take it for granted, I suppose. But then, like, when you're a game developer, you're like really get so embedded into it, and you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to be playing the game. Like,
you realize how freaking hard it is to make that one little scene, and you're like, oh, it's so beautiful. How did they do that?
Yeah, like, even with menus as well, like there's some menus out there and you're just like, oh, wow. But that's also why I sort of find online multiplayer a pain for me, because maybe it's a pain for others as well. I never really thought about it like that, but I just sort of sometimes just sort of take in like whatever's going on, just like, wow, that is so awesome. I could, remake that and stuff. And, like back when I first started, like, I used to do it, and then I never really knew how I could go about doing something like that. And I guess that's also a way for me to, like, sort of compare my current self to when I first started. Like, previously, if I looked at something and was like, oh, I wonder how I could create it. Now it's like, oh, I know how to create that. It's very cool.
On the other side of the spectrum, I guess, sometimes when I look at a game, like, if it's not super beautiful, there are some games that I've found where I'm just like, this is the least intuitive thing I've ever played. Why would you make this button
Oh
do
my
this?
God.
Or why would you do this? This makes no sense. You're making it super hard for me. I can't do this. And so, like, I will rage, like, on the dumbest, tiniest aspect of a game, even if that button is not important outside of, like, the UI menu, the user interface. It's just like, this is dumb. And people are like, why do you care? And I'm like, because I would have done better.
I love that. I love that because Reilly, you might remember we played that VR game, the horror one or whatever it was.
Yes.
We had to do like those puzzles and had that like I don't know, it was like a dead, like scary ghost girl or something that was like there.
Yes.
It wasn't good. It
made me so mad.
It wasn't good. I felt almost like offended by it. I can't remember what it was in. It might have been in like a VR party game that you had to find like a certain room to play it on. But oh my God, I don't know how to describe the feelings. Like, I don't normally, when I look at a game, I just play it, right? I don't go, oh yeah, I could do this or that. I'm notorious for not taking the game in. I just zoom through it, get the achievements, and blast anything that gets my way. But this game, I had to pause and go, what the hell is this? This isn't good. Why is this in this? And I think Reilly did the same thing, although she's probably a lot more technical about it.
Probably a little bit, but I definitely have moments, especially in VR games, like if walls don't match up correctly, or if you're trying to do an action and the action doesn't work either because the buttons are dumb, or like you can't, or the tracking's ruined, or you can't physically grab one part of the wall because like the collider is off. And then I get so mad because I'm like, that would be an easy fix if you just did this one thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's one thing I've found with playing VR. It's like, oh no, look at that collider. It's not set up. And you like touch it, and then you end up flying like through the skies and stuff. You get motion sick.
I definitely do stuff. I do stuff like that in some VR, not VR games, but okay, in VR games, I will point it out because it's super like quite literally in your face.
Well, yeah.
And then I do it on some console games. Like if I go back and play Halo 2 with one of my buddies, him and I will go out to break the game. And hey, it's super easy. Whoever decided to leave the broken shit in Halo 2 Anniversary, thank you, because it's so easy and so much fun to like walk up to a wall, punch it, and it shoots you 30 feet in the air, and then you can walk on top of the world. Love it. But if I play something like Red Dead 2, and I like to rampage in that game. Anyone who's ever played it with me or heard a podcast I've talked about it on can attest that I just absolutely go ballistic for whatever reason. I'm sure there's a psychological reason. We're not going to dive into that here. And our producer, Anthony, I played with him a couple of times, and he can attest I will stop the rampage as soon as I see something beautiful, like a nice lit up mountain range, a glitch, or something I can break in the game. And I don't know what's in me. I think part of it's the game developer experience I have, and the other part of me is just the troublemaker in me. But I love exposing these broken colliders, these broken little bits of games that I can exploit. Maybe I shouldn't be allowed to play games or make games. Maybe this is my way of finding out.
Well, see, that's the thing. When you find a mistake purposely because you're trying to break it, you feel super smart. But then if you break it by accident when you're trying to be immersed in the game, that's when you get mad. It's just like, oh, why was this in such an obvious place? So many people would have made this decision, even if you're probably the only weirdo that would make that decision in the first place. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's I guess like for when you're balancing like an enemy or something, that's one thing we've struggled with because, you know, when you're a developer, you don't actually like you sort of you have this giant bias about your own game, and then you know that's why testers are so important. But yeah, like oh my, I kid you not, like there's this one enemy that we keep having to change, like about probably changed it. I'd say upwards of about 7 times, like. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And it's so annoying because it's just like, oh, I think we finally got it. And then we get a playtester to test it. He's like, this is so difficult. I'm like, oh, what? Come on. We just changed it again. Yeah.
So would you say that among all the various hats in this game development cycle that you've worn, whether it be writing, PR, HR, whatever, would you say balancing is the hardest part that you had to do?
Probably. Well, actually, I mean, if I had to say about like production of the game itself, then yeah, that was probably the like hardest thing. But if I was to say like just like from an overall sort of perspective, I'd say like contacting press, like we contacted press a couple of weeks ago now, was probably one of the most hardest things that I've ever had to do with game dev because you know we wrote a press release and sent it off to I think it was 67 individual emails, and bear in mind we had to put a key in the subject line and then 2 keys in the subject, 2 keys in the body, sorry. So literally had to, you know, send one email to whoever it was and then do the same, but then change like loads of things like copy paste. And it was, that was so tiresome. But it was like really hard on me. Like it really caused so much stress afterwards. I was like, oh my, come on. But, you know, I said to myself, you know, this won't really get to me. I'm sure it'll be fine. You know, I'll be like, it's fine. It's just, you know, if you get a reply, that's cool. But then like literally, like I got to the end of it. I was like, oh, I'm done. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things I've done because again, I was responsible for that as well. So I guess just having to send 67 emails in 3 hours was very tiring.
That sounds exhausting. Like just hearing that number, 67 emails. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I like the 4 I send out every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, I have to send out like another 100 eventually. So, you know, we're like building up this giant press list because, you know, obviously you want to get people interested in the game. We need a couple of articles because currently we literally have none. Oh no, we have one. We have one article on our game. So
well, there you go.
You know.
Kudos.
Yeah, it's very nerve wracking because it's always in your mind. Like once I sent those emails, it's always in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, when am I going to get the email back or whatever? Because you every morning, I check my emails and stuff, and go onto the head till email. I'm like, oh, here we go. What could be on here? And then you get like, there's just nothing in your inbox.
Oh, that's the worst feeling right there.
Yeah.
So onto the balancing of your game. Obviously, you talked about how some of the enemies, even though you've tried balancing them a few times, they seem to always kind of not broken, but they always give you a headache.
Yeah.
How do you properly balance an enemy so that it doesn't feel like the game is either too hard, too easy, or just doesn't work correctly?
Well, a lot of the time, the issue that we face is that either the enemy is too fast or slow, and like lunges at the player sort of thing, or its projectiles are too slow, or they don't seem to feel challenging enough and stuff. And with the concept of the game, and you have the minions, they can like block the projectiles and stuff, and prevent you from getting hurt. So I guess like the hardest thing is sort of making it so, one, you get a good reward from an enemy that's really difficult. Two, that the enemy doesn't scare the player too much, because obviously, like, we want to scare the player a little bit, because then we want to keep up that adrenaline whilst you're playing the game. But for the enemies we have this option that basically allows us to literally click this checkbox, and we can change like those values and stuff, and it's like a retreat ability, if that makes sense. Like they're able to sort of like not get too close to the player, let's say. So they'd say, I don't know, 5 centimeters away from the player or whatever, and like you have to like just sort of like change up this value very very much, because one of the things we had was there's this enemy, and he was the strongest enemy in the game. This is the enemy that we had to change loads of times. He was the strongest enemy in the game, and he literally like he had 3 health, I think it was. He had to be hit 3 times with the minions. His projectiles followed you.
Oh no.
And like, this is going off the first draft, and he would also like get really up close in your face, so you couldn't even move. And the projectile was also very fast, and literally it was like almost unbeatable. So we just had to change those values for that, because like one of the things about because we were making it a roguelite, roguelites are supposed to be difficult, but obviously you don't want it like ridiculously difficult. You just want a level of difficulty. So sort of keeping up with the level of difficulty without making it too hard for a fairly difficult game is like really annoying, because you sort of like you either get it too easy or too hard, and you like swap between the two. Like there'll be certain aspects that like would be good, so you'd have the testers, and they'd say, oh, it's too fast. And you're like, okay, what's too fast? And they're like, the projectiles. I'm like, okay. And then we change the projectiles, and then they say, the enemy's too fast. Okay.
So it's a lot of testing and a lot of balancing values back and forth until something finally feels right.
Yeah.
So I have one last question before we move on to our John of the Week, and I was hoping you could give other young game developers or other young people trying to get into the game development industry some advice on how they could do that.
Yeah. So my biggest tip that I'd have is, rather than sitting down and like watching YouTube videos and, thinking of a game idea that's going to be the bestseller or whatever. Like if I'm going to be like very blunt, because I wish that I had someone that was blunt with me, because I didn't really realize what I was getting myself into. Game development's not easy, and be prepared for a lot of there's a lot of downfalls that you'll have, and also don't think you can make something humongous, because if you're on your own as well, you're very unlikely to be able to make the next, I don't know what it would be, like the next Minecraft, for example, in a week. Like you gotta sort of or in your first week, sorry. You gotta start off really small. Like that's like everyone's tip, but it's like really, really important that you do start off small. Like I started off I watched a tutorial on how you make Pong, and then I watched a tutorial on how you make Snake. Actually, I didn't watch it. I read through documentation, and then literally I read two tutorials that I found online, and then I immediately went to make my first game in 2 hours. I think I made it in. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this game and I'm gonna see what I can do. But yeah, just start off like really small, and then you sort of branch out anyway, like just naturally. Like it becomes natural to sort of go like make bigger and bigger projects as you go along. But yeah, it's a very tough task, game development. So don't be discouraged when something doesn't go the way you'd hoped, because like that just goes for everything in life, really. You never know where things will go. So either be prepared, I was prepared for the worst. And I think that's kind of been quite good for me, because, I've kept my, I guess, expectations not too high, but not too low, sort of thing. So, just don't undervalue yourself, but don't overvalue yourself either. Because if you think that you're going to be the next, going to be making the next GTA, for example, then, you need to think a little bit about that.
Right. Set your standards at a reasonable level. I get it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, all those young developers out there take heed to your advice, because it is important to balance your expectations.
Yeah, because there's a lot of young game developers that are really surging, or really like joining the whole industry. Back when I started, I was one of the very few young developers out there, and now, like, I look back and there are so many 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 14-year-old developers working on these little projects. But they're doing really good, because, it's strengthening me, because I don't know, like, it's sort of, there's more competition, which is also good and bad. So, don't be too scared to join the industry just because there's so many people, because there's less indies than there are, let's say, journalists, for example. Let's say you wanted to be a journalist, but you're like, oh, I want to be a game developer. Then, like, go with what you think, to be fair. That's the other thing.
So just follow your dreams.
Yeah.
Good advice. I like it. All right. So now we're going to do our John of the Weeks. Matt, you are our guest. So would you like to start us off, or do you want to pass on to someone else? We'll circle back to you.
Yeah. Okay. So at the start of this week, Millions of Minions was nominated for a BAFTA award, which is kind of crazy, which is, in case I'm not sure if you guys know what that is. Sort of like, I guess, the Oscars, but like in the UK, and this one thing is for games. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Really, yeah, thank you.
I'm impressed and a little jealous. Now I want to find a BAFTA. Well, yeah, congrats to you.
It was really weird getting that email. I was like, wait a minute. I think you might have put the wrong name in there.
No, I'm sure you guys' hard work showed through, so you'll have to let us know how that goes. Reilly, since you sometimes have good John of the Week and sometimes
Hey.
Johns of the Week, how about you tell us yours?
All right. Well, my John of the Week is actually going to be Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Ooh.
It's
Is
a
this
really
a
fun game. Really fun game where you can play with friends. Somebody is trying to defuse a bomb, and the other person has a bomb defusing manual. And so you have to try to. You can't see the bomb if you have the manual, and so you have to communicate with the other person and tell them how to defuse the bomb, or else you blow up in however long you have. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If you have a friend who's willing to play, definitely do it. There's a lot of mods for like crazy little modules you can do. Like you have to solve a Rubik's Cube, I think, for one of them to defuse the bomb. So if you're interested, try it out.
Yeah, I don't trust you enough, Reilly, so I'm gonna have to pass.
Hey.
Oh, no. Nah, Keep Talking Nobody Explodes is that's a masterpiece. I absolutely love that game. It's so funny because you just yell at all your friends. It's funniest.
Yeah, you learn who your real friends are if you can still be friends after the game.
Exactly.
Why didn't you listen to me? I obviously told you what to do.
That's
okay.
That's similar to what Overcooked was like with me and my friend. It was
it's definitely similar.
Bonding.
Oh yeah.
Overcooked is another good one.
Okay, so Jack, what is your John of the Week?
This is a good question that I am not prepared for.
Jack.
I know.
Ha, it's not just me.
Yeah, congrats, Reilly. You get a pass.
Would you like me to say mine? All right, I'll say mine, and then
I can go.
It's not like you've had this whole episode to do this. It's fine. All right, so my John of the Week is a album, CD, whatever. It's music. So for those of you that like to listen to music while you game or do anything, I listen to a lot of metal. It helps me stay focused. This band is called Killswitch Engage. They have an album out called Atonement. Specifically, the song Signal Fire. It features a singer named Howard Jawns. Howard Jawns was originally the lead singer of Killswitch Engage before he left to do his own thing. The band's great. He's a great singer. The music's awesome. So if you guys are like, oh man, we'll listen to some metal while I'm blasting fools away on Call of Duty or whatever, or if you're doing homework like me, you do that. I sleep to it. Doesn't bother me. It's music. I vibe with it. It's whatever. Check it out. Atonement, Killswitch Engage, came out 2019. All right, Jack, I gave you 2 minutes.
And I am prepared, actually.
All right.
My John of the Week is a song. Well, I guess it's an album. Oh, yeah. It's All American Badass is the album by Joey Badass. And it came out, I think, in like 2017. Yeah. It's a very good album with a lot of relevant social topics right now.
Yep. Cool. Make sure you guys check those out. So, Matt, how can our listeners find you, check out the game, etc.?
So you can find me on YouTube. It's Matt Ball. I try to post bi-weekly content there. And I'm starting up my podcast again soon. So it's called the Indie Dev Chat. It's going to be on all platforms as well, hopefully, because I'm going to really push it this time.
Hey, there you go.
And yeah, you can find Millions of Minions on Steam. They should just search Millions of Minions and you'll find it. And you can also, if you would like to, you can pre-order the game via our website, headsupgames.com. It's about $1 or $2 cheaper than it will be upon release. So yeah.
Ooh, very cool. Awesome. Reilly, how can people find you? I know your normal usernames like jumping on one foot or something.
Hey. So, as always, you can find me on Instagram at tripping over both feet, or on Twitter at tripping over 2FT, tripping over 2 feet.
Ooh. All right. Well, we'll have to. Oh, you're on Twitter. That's right. I always forget because you hate Twitter. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. Jack, how can people find you?
I am on Twitter at Jack Forschner, and follow us on Game Jawns at Game Jawns.
Ooh, Very cool. You can find me on Twitter, of course, at the Mitch Cook. I like to post kind of fun things. I try to stay relevant and
It's
hip.
very subjective.
Yeah, it's very subjective.
You get it. You
Yep.
understand.
But regardless, that's where you can find me. Please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Matt, for sitting down with us today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with us about all things games.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Huge shout out and thanks to our audio engineer, Stephen Angelo. Without you, I wouldn't sound nearly as good as I do, and you and Jack probably sound okay. Anthony Zoccola is our producer. Huge thanks to him as well. I don't know how he deals with this week in and week out. I'm sure he's getting tired of it. Finally, thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate you guys, whether you're a first-time listener or you're coming back and back and back again because you love hearing me talk and prattle on about the most nonsensical gaming news there is. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And until next time, peace out.
Goodbye.
Bye.